everyone thinks about when you have a big achievement like the Pulitzer Prize, what transpires after that. And I just like you to comment on that too, because you have a great story about it, I think.
Well, it was a surprise that I won that. I got a call from my editor telling me, I said, I can't believe it. He said, I can't either. And I said, well, that's great, thanks. And he was very concerned that he's like an insider, you know, so he knew before anyone else knew, and he especially knew before my agent knew. And he said, don't tell Binky, my agent, that I told you. Okay, why? Because she wants to be, you know, the person who knew before anyone else knew. So there's that. And I said, well, that's great, that's amazing, you know. And then my first thought was, fuck, I wish my parents were still alive. They just died a few years before. And so I called my wife, and I said, you won't believe it, I book won the Pulitzer. And she said, oh, that's so great. God, I wish your parents were alive. and I said, oh, you know, it's like, it's really the sort of thing like you do for your parents. So they can say, my kid, you know. And it didn't make much, I don't know, maybe we sold some more books. It wasn't a big deal. I mean, they give out a lot of Pulitzers. And I mean, this editor who called me has probably won 2. So not the biggest thing, but it was nice. I wouldn't give it back. But my parents weren't around, so it wasn't the same.
Yeah. And I know my parents were always really worried about, one, me surfing and being a surfer, and the other thing was me being a writer, because they thought both of those were really losing propositions, and especially combined. So when I got the job at Surfer, I had on my door the last letter that my mother had sent me from when I was living in Europe, and I'd finally gotten some gigs. I was writing for an English language paper in Paris, and I'd gotten some things, and then I got this job at Surfer, and became the editor. And I had this note on the door, and my mom talking about me, and so at the very end of it, she says, "So have you found any work yet, or are you still writing?" So I put that up on my door, kind of saying, "Yeah."
My dad was really intent on publishing, and I was writing from an early age. Like at 12, I was already writing lots of fiction and short stories and stuff. And he would say, "You need to publish. Like this is all right." He came from a small town in Michigan, and he was a journalist in his youth, and he kept saying, "You just need to, like anything, obituaries, anything. You just need to." And I was just resisted that. And he'd say, "You're always looking in these surf magazines. Why don't you write something for one of those?" I said, "Dad, there's nothing I can tell them that they'd want to publish." And I said, "It's all about the photos anyway." He said, "I'll take the photos." I said, "No, you won't. You don't understand." You know, I mean, he couldn't do it, I couldn't do it, but he was always on. And his basic attitude was, "Oh, you're still writing," for many years. And then when I finally started publishing, he wasn't hassling me anymore, but I didn't really get that, it meant that much to him. And in fact, I thought he was maybe a little jealous. I don't know, because he went into the film business instead of stuck with writing. And then years later, when I was on tour with this book, because more personal is sort of different, and I'd have people come up to me and say, "I worked with your dad," and I'd say, "Oh," because he made a lot of, pictures all over the place, and so he was so proud of you. I said, "What? God, why didn't he tell me?" I was just like choked up, and so it's writing doesn't seem like anything till it seems like something.